Welcome to the We Are Wake Tech podcast with your host, Wake Tech President, Dr. Scott Rawls.
Hi, I'm Scott Rawls, host of the We Are Wake Tech podcast and president of Wake Tech. And Happy New Year. This particular episode, we're focusing on STEM. And in our most recent issue of Career Focus, what we send to the residents in Wake County, it says the future is STEM. But you know, it's not just the future. The present of our region is STEM because this is one of the hottest employment regions for STEM jobs in the whole country. Top 10 in life science, top 10 in STEM job concentration. And so if you want a gateway into the future and the present of STEM opportunities in Wake County, Wake Tech is your gateway. And today we have two great Wake Tech staff and faculty members, people who have been instrumental in STEM at Wake Tech, to talk about the great opportunities that are here at Wake Tech. Jackie Swanick, who is the Associate Dean for Science and Math at Wake Tech, and Chris O'Riordan-Aja, who is our department head for our Associate in Engineering program. So if you want to know about STEM, these are the people to talk to in Wake County and at Wake Tech. So Jackie, Chris, welcome, and thank you for joining us on this January episode of the We Are Wake Tech podcast.
Thank you for having us. Yep, happy to be here.
We've got two guests today, so they'll be talking. I'll try to coordinate this a little bit. We'll talk first to Jackie and then Chris. But before we get into talking about the different parts of the STEM opportunities at Wake Tech, I want to learn a little bit more about you and have our listeners learn about you, because we always like to know what brought you to Wake Tech. What was your path to Wake Tech, and a little bit about what you do at Wake Tech now. So Jackie, you go first.
Sure. Thinking about where I am at Wake Tech, I started teaching at a community college as an adjunct while I was teaching at other places, and fell in love with the community college. Knew that that was my niche. Wake Tech offered me a full-time job, and I loved our students here and the opportunities that we provide for our students. That was 11 years ago, and I haven't looked back yet.
You've been quite a contributor here, and if I recall, you have quite a lofty academic background before coming to Wake Tech. Tell us a little bit about your academic background, because sometimes people may not, you're someone who could teach anywhere, but you're teaching at Wake Tech. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So I got my bachelor's at Campbell University, just down the road. And then I went to Dallas, Texas, and got my PhD in biology from the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center. Loved signal transduction, loved science, missed North Carolina. So decided to move back home. Did my postdoc at UNC Chapel Hill as a Spire Fellow, where I learned to teach and to do research. So my undergrad, I dealt with signal transduction, is how cells kind of communicate with each other and know what to do with the environmental cues. And then as my postdoc, I looked at heart development using frogs as a model system. I've taught at HBCUs, I've taught at R01s, I've taught at the community college, and it really is the community college that I love.
Well, we were fortunate, certainly our students were fortunate when Dr. Swanick decided to move back to North Carolina and join us at Wake Tech. Now, Chris has been a little newer with us. He's more recent with us, a couple of years now here at Wake Tech, and he has a unique role because he's our department head for a very unique degree area, Associate in Engineering. Chris, tell us your story in getting to Wake Tech.
Well, thanks again for having me on the show. I've always said I needed to, community college was kind of a bucket list for me. Having done most of the major universities and a small liberal arts school. And, excuse me, my wife, who actually happens to be a community college advocate since she went to community college back when we were in Florida. Valencia was kind of the biggest community college there. Always kind of, talked about the community college experience she had there before she came to Central Florida and got lost in the mist there. So, she wished she actually had that community college environment.
And she's
in Central Florida, right? So she raves about it. Fortunately for me, like I said, I was also kind of looking for that community college experience to just kind of know how that felt like. I had no idea though where it was going to be. I mean, to be honest, we had just moved from Florida to Missouri. I didn't know of any community colleges in the Missouri area, so we were actually down here. And as I told you, Dr. Ross, we were in Asheville for spring break, and my wife fell in love with North Carolina from Asheville. So I tell her that that's where the president is from. He loves Asheville too. So long story short, looking for opportunities here in North Carolina. Wake Tech happens to be the largest community college. So I said, well, let's try that. I think it all really kind of happened that Wake Tech was also had a position in the engineering area. So it was a great fit for myself. My wife was also able to transfer. Her company also has a branch in the Triangle. So here we are.
Well, we're lucky to have you. We're lucky to have you.
Thank you.
So Jackie, let's talk first a little bit about science and math. And so if you were a STEM student at Wake Tech, a couple of areas that we're talking about today that you would have particular interest in. First is the Associate in Science program, which is set up to be, it's one of our transfer degrees designed in a way so that you can come to Wake Tech, Associate in Science, and then seamlessly transfer into one of the UNC institutions or many of the private institutions in North Carolina without loss of credit is the goal as a science or math major at one of the institutions, the idea being that you're going to go from Wake Tech to UNC. Talk a little bit about why the advantage of being an Associate in Science student at Wake Tech, if you're interested in science or math, what's the advantage of the community college advantage in that route?
Sure. So the first one is our small class sizes. So if you end up at state or one of the other schools, you're going to end up in a class of 300, 400, and a lot of our classes are capped at 40. So you really get that that interaction with your instructor, someone who is trained to teach, not trained to do research, as well as getting to know the peers around you. And so, again, we have our small class sizes. We have instructors whose main focus is to teach and really cares about your success and cares about you as a person. And then we still have labs that rival that of the four-year schools. I have some of my colleagues that come and look at our labs and like, wow, I wish my lab looked like this. This is awesome. And then we have our undergraduate research program. And so if you go to a 4-year, a lot of times you won't get able to have that experience to get into the labs or get into the STEM profession and do it until your junior or senior year. Whereas here, you can do that.
Well, why you mentioned it, you mentioned our labs, and I know the STEM lab at our northern campus. We have a new, what we call co-lab at our new facility that's just opened at our RTP campus. Those are unique facilities, and you've probably played a key role in nursing those along to where they are right now. Can you talk a little bit about those labs and what makes them unique?
Sure. So the one up here at North is a fairly large lab, and it's considered a STEM lab. And so that means all the areas of science and math are in there. And you can almost think about it as a think tank. So a lot of times if you go to a 4-year school, you're going to be in a lab doing biology, or you're going to be in a lab doing chemistry. But with our lab, you're all in there together. And so some innovations have already happened. So we had a story where a biology student was doing an assay trying to grow some algae to make biofuels, and she needed a top that had holes in it for her plate. And we couldn't find one. And she's, saying that, oh, this would be so nice. It would save time. And we had a student who was running the 3D printer, and he was like, oh, no problem. What do you need? I'll just make you one. Right. And that is what is so unique, is because it helps our students understand the interdisciplinary nature of STEM by having everybody in that space together, almost like I said, like a think tank.
Yeah, understand. That's you mentioned that kind of a community college advantage is community colleges, our faculty are teaching focused and don't have research requirements. At a university, it's often, the first and foremost is research, and teaching is not, is part of what you do, but it may not be the first and most important thing in terms of advancement. And at community college, we focus all on teaching, and that's, I think, an advantage. But in the STEM world, science, technology, engineering, math, it's about research. And one of the things that I think is so unique here at Wake Tech, and I this program called START, and that's an acronym too. So Jackie, tell us the acronym of START. And START started with faculty here who came up with just what I think is a brilliant idea that keeps growing and growing and advantages students. So talk a little bit about START, what that means, and what that opportunity is for students here at Wake Tech.
Sure. We do love our alphabet soup, right? So all those acronyms. So START stands for STEM, Academic Research and Training. It's an undergraduate research experience. That's actually an internship program through Wake Tech, and so you can get internship credit. You work with a mentor on a research project that deals with anywhere in STEM. So some of our most popular projects deals with antibiotic resistance. So we have two projects, one that deals with looking for antibiotic resistance in the environment. The other one is looking for soil bacteria and new antibiotics to help with the antibiotic resistance. But we go play in the streams and look at crawfish. We play in the meadows out behind the North Campus for our pollinator garden. We have math projects looking at whether or not companies should contract out a CPR class or whether or not they should do their own. And so those real world applications. And so students get the experience to get into the lab to do the projects that you would do at a four-year university in a research lab, understand what it means to be a STEM professional, and get that mentorship with a faculty member. So one of the other things that this helps with is career exploration. So some of our students come in and they're like, I know I want to do X. So I know I want to work on climate change and work in the lab. And they get in and they do that work and they're like, oh, wait a minute, it wasn't really what I thought. I really like the data analytics of the science. And so now they can do that career exploration and have that knowledge before they go to the 4 years. And so they have the experience, plus they don't waste the time of taking classes that they may not need. And looking forward, we are actually partnering with NC State, UNC Chapel Hill, and North Carolina A&T. So we will actually be working on projects from those labs. And so our students will get that connection with the 4-year schools as well as working on those projects.
One of the things I love about START is that Wake Tech is seen as a very workforce focused college. And it's, I think, apropos that with STEM, because there's so many STEM jobs in Wake County and this Research Triangle region, that STEM is not just theoretical, you go off to do this. It is right here, and is right here at Wake Tech. And one of the things I find just great about the START program is that's also a way for students to get experience on their record by the way it works as an actual internship where you get that internship experience doing an internship on your record, and so you're starting off in STEM work, not just pursuing the STEM degree, which you're doing as well. So it's very much like apprenticeship, internships, clinicals that you see with our healthcare. That's what I think is just really unique about START. So can you tell us a little bit more about how that aspect ties into the academic pursuit of STEM here at Wake Tech through this very unique START program?
Sure. And so very much like you mentioned, internships and experience is really where it's at, right? So to be competitive, you need that experience. And so we allow students the opportunity to get that internship experience, to get that real world experience, to take the theory of what they know in the class and to put it into play and to see how the science and the chemistry, the engineering, the math, it all comes together in the class, from the classroom into the real world. And so It also allows our students to be very competitive. And so they have that internship experience on their resume. And so when they transfer to the four-year schools, a lot of times they will go ahead and they will beat in the native juniors for getting those research jobs because they already have the experience. They already know how to design experiments and how to use the equipment and how to think about science and how to analyze data. A lot of our students, by the time they leave, they're designing their own experiments, which are a lot of times what students in graduate school do, right? And so it really gives that competitive edge to our students to have this kind of focused, intense-ish type of situation where they can really get their hands in it. And it also helps them to be competitive if they want to go away for summer research experience anywhere in the country.
I know we had a couple of students on the career focus, and I've heard just great stories and met many of the students participating in START, but you would know them so well. Some of them. Is there any story you would share from a student experience where START gave them a real leg up as an example?
Sure. So two of them kind of come to mind. The first one is Daisy Brunt, and she was one of the math and science student excellent winners. And she was one that I was talking about career exploration. So she came in, she had been all over the world and lived in villages and come back knowing in her heart that she wanted to work on climate change. And she got in and she worked on our drunk fruit fly project and decided that bench science really wasn't what she wanted, but she loved the math behind it. And so the next semester, she actually did the biostats part of the project, fell in love, transferred to state, got her bachelor's degree there, and now she is currently at UNC Charlotte pursuing a PhD in biostats. The second student is Oswaldo Rodriguez. And so he's just an amazing young man and wrote a blog from NC State and talked about how participation in the START program gave him the academic confidence that he needed to excel as a student, that he got into the lab and really found his confidence that this is what he could do, is he could do science, and it really helped the academics to come in. And that confidence has led him to go to NC State. And he went with me to Washington, D.C., and we've talked to our congressman about START. And he has started his own chapter, the first chapter of SACNAS, which is the scientific organization for Hispanics and Native Americans in science at NC State. And now he's on getting his PhD in comparative biology. And so it really gave him the confidence that he needed to kind of aspire and just be on this amazing trajectory.
Well, that's the good stuff right there. And before I turn it over and ask Chris a little bit about engineering, I do want to tease and let folks know and congratulate you that we are a recipient of a major National Science Foundation grant, thanks to Jackie and the team at Wake Tech for the START program. Wake Tech has received since 1997 20 NSF awards, National Science Foundation awards, 7 in recent years. But this award will be the largest in Wake Tech's history, particularly for an NSF grant to Wake Tech. We've been very successful with the National Science Foundation, but this is going to be a unique opportunity that we'll be announcing with a press release and an event. We'll have some type of STEM party coming up. It's going to be a party of celebration. But Jackie, tell us a little bit about what that significant National Science Foundation grant is going to allow more as we turn the corner here in this new year and look towards the immediate future for opportunity for Wake Tech students.
Of course. And so Chris as well, Chris is part of this grant. And so we're doing this together. But one of the things that this will allow is for us to pay our students, right? And so when we talk about internships, especially with our underrepresented students, a lot of times they cannot participate in internships that are unpaid internships because they have to take their time to work, right? And so this will give competitive wages to our students. So they will be paid for $15 an hour for 60 hours of commitment each semester. That will allow them to get the experience that they need and still be able to provide for their families. They'll get that experience. We'll have community building. Chris is in charge of the principals and research training, which will help kind of professional development to understand what it means to be a STEM professional. The other thing that we are super, super excited about is this will allow us to compensate our faculty. So up until now, this has been a labor of love for our faculty, and they have given of their time and their expertise and their wisdom. And so now we are able to compensate them. And like I alluded to earlier, the other thing that this allows us to do is partner with those four-year institutions. And so not only will it be the research experience that we are doing, but we are hoping that the students will spend a decent amount of time on those campuses. So when they transfer, they'll be familiar with the campus. They'll know where the resources are. They'll have faculty they already know that they can go to for help. And so it will help to build those bridges between Wake Tech and the transferring universities.
That's tremendous, and congratulations. And if you're somebody interested in STEM in this region, why would you look anyplace other than Wake Tech? I mean, we're talking about the paid internship opportunities, experience, the degree, seamless degree. Wow, what an opportunity. Thank you, Jackie, for sharing that with us. Chris, you've been instrumental in working with the START program, but you have a unique role at Wake Tech because we have a unique degree in North Carolina, the Associate in Engineering degree. And, just as a point of context for our listeners, in most places across the United States, if you were interested in going straight into a school of engineering, you would probably be in our Associate in Science program, and then you transfer, and then you do your best to try to get into that special opportunity. Thanks to the schools of engineering in North Carolina, and working with community colleges years ago, there's this even more direct path through a transfer opportunity called Associate in Engineering. So, Chris, that's what you kind of help lead, or you do lead as the department head. So tell us about that unique opportunity that's available through community colleges like Wake Tech in North Carolina.
Absolutely. Well, I'll start with what Jackie just said with the sizes. And I think that's kind of the key thing for Wake Tech and most community colleges. But I started off, again, my little background in engineering started at a very small liberal school, which was almost kind of like this, where there wasn't really an engineering program. So you had to major in engineering science to transfer, and it was more of a 3-2 program. And so that's how I started and got my math and physics. Unfortunately, didn't get my engineering science there, and then transferred over to Florida to actually pursue a second bachelor's and then move on to my master's. Went into industry, and then interesting enough, the college where I started, after following my path and knowing what I've done in engineering and where I was in industry, and also now back at my alma mater in Florida teaching, decided they were ready now to start the engineering program at the liberal arts school where I started off. And they figured, since I've kind of gone through it, as they will always say, a guinea pig, as they say, because I've gone through it, I know the ups and downs. They wanted me to kind of spearhead that program. So I went back there to direct the program. And what was unique about the program, again, came down to the size. It was a very small school. We had even much smaller class sizes than we do here. But I've always told my students, I said, in engineering and what we do, I have worked with the best of the best from UNC, Berkeley, Stanford, when I was in the industry. And really, at that point, nobody really cares. Nobody talks about the school that you went to get your degree. At the end of the day, can you do the job as an engineer? And I think that's very, very important, because when I talk to students, they looked at the big name schools, and that's where they want to go. Even right now, when I talk to my students about, we do have more opportunities. It's not just NC State alone. You could go to A&T, has now very strong programs. You go to ECU, has very strong programs, and I'll get to that. But it is very, very important that engineering, you always have to think about the class sizes. Jackie already talked about the lab opportunities that you had. In my bigger universities, when it comes to lab time, unfortunately, some of the students don't even perform some of the labs because the numbers are so large that what you're doing is just collecting data from the graduate teaching assistant who's doing the lab and giving you data to go and then plot or come up with your results. That's not what you want in engineering. You want the small sizes, the hands-on, so you can have that experience. And I think that is actually what is most important. So you fast forward now, hoping that the students kind of understand the concept of how to really get engineering. When I went into the bigger environment and I was lost, having that small size experience is what I used in my larger universities. And I tell students all the time, if you happen to find yourselves in that situation, you have to constantly keep a one-on-one engagement with your professors. And my professors will always ask me, because I was always there because of my small environment where I knew I could go to any faculty anytime when I had a problem. And that's really how to be successful in engineering. So again, for our students who come here first, I commend them for coming here because they actually get a small environment mentality before transferring to the bigger schools, and they follow through with what I tell them. They go, okay, this is how it worked for me here at Wake Tech. I'm going to keep the same practice when I go to the bigger universities, to know that in a classroom, I'm probably just going to be lost. I'll be just a number, but at least I know how to get to my faculty if I need the help. So sorry, kind of drag this out a little bit, but I think that was kind
Well,
of
I
what I
think
wanted to
too,
make sure
you've
of.
emphasized too the Wake Tech advantage, as Jackie was pointing
Yes.
out, on the science and math side, because math is fundamental to as to engineering and science programs. And the reason why you get paid well in these fields is because they're difficult, and not everybody does it. And it's difficult because some of the classes can be a little bit intimidating for folks when you talk about physics, when you talk about calculus, statics, dynamics, and engineering. So having that sense of support, smaller class sizes, people you can go to, people, that's a key leg up.
Yeah.
One other leg up with relationship to engineering, and I might jump in just to give a little context history, because I think there's a real something unique at Wake Tech, but in North Carolina around engineering, is this direct relationship with the schools of engineering in North Carolina. And I used to be president of the community college system and was able to work on this a little bit in that role. Previously worked at president of Craven Community College, where we set up one of the first 2+2s with NC State. But there's a unique model in North Carolina that has evolved. And I have to give, every time I talk about engineering, I have to give a little shout out to the pioneers who brought this here. People on the community college side, people here at Wake Tech, Susan Meriden, people at Sand Hills that were involved. I always shout out to Randy Parker, a former president of Vance Granville, and Guilford Tech, an engineer from NC State who was involved. But our transfer partners have been so instrumental. Just great people at NC State. Louis Martin Vega, the dean of the School of Engineering, Jerome Lavelle, the associate dean, have just been instrumental in creating this unique community college associate in engineering degree. Harold Martin, who is the chancellor at North Carolina A&T when he was the chief academic officer for the UNC system, was instrumental. ECU, Paul Kaufman, who's now retired. So you have all these folks who came together to create this pathway of opportunity through a unique degree called associate in engineering. And now we have, just many associate engineering students who, as you said, many of them are targeting NC State, the largest of the engineering schools, the closest, but also have walkways into the other programs that are just as direct coming through here as if they were on those campuses. Talk a little bit about that interaction with those four-year universities and what some of those advantages are, Chris. What do you see as an opportunity here in North Carolina that you might not have seen other places?
Right. Well, so the first thing, Dr. Ross, you mentioned is the opportunity for creating that connection, because when I was back in Missouri, the program that we had, the closest university that we could actually partner with was in North Dakota. So to kind of pause a little bit to kind of give you the perspective of Missouri, where Missouri is and where North Dakota is, that was a stretch. There were universities that, I traveled to. SIU, it was close. WashU was also close by. And Rolla was the other one. And we tried to kind of establish some partnership, but it wasn't easy So we had to just resort to North Dakota. So I say that to kind of put everything to perspective. Now you're here, very impressive. Like I thought we had to restart all this articulation agreement that I kind of went through back in Missouri. Come to find out it was all in place. You have state, you have ECU, you have A&T, you have really, really good schools very close by that our students could go to, and that's amazing. My first thing immediately was to get in touch with the engineering department at NC State. You've mentioned some of them. More so to kind of see how our courses align, because when part of the articulation agreement is that, you know, we use exactly what some of the courses so we can keep the standard. And yes, we do keep NC State standards, A&T standards, so it can easily transfer. So when our courses we're teaching here, it's no different from the courses that students will be taking if they do happen to go there immediately versus coming here. So that is one of the advantages. And I've also told the students that thinking about the faculty-student ratio, if there is any course you could take at Wake Tech, even if you completed your 60 credit hours, but it's going to be required when you go there, like foreign language, right? Why not take it here with 25 students versus going there? So that are some of the advantages that we have. And also having that articulation agreement in place is very helpful, because our students get an AE degree, which says everything you've taken under that program, we're accepting. We're going to take, we're not doing a course per course, and that gives me nightmares just thinking about that. But it happens in most transfer schools that you don't have articulation agreements with. You're going to always come back with, oh, yes, you've taken calculus, but this is not a calculus that we want. You've taken physics 1, but this is not a physics 1 that we accept. And it's very, very challenging, because I went through that process when I transferred from Illinois to Florida. It was a course per course evaluation. And I don't want to see anybody go through that, which is why I think it's very, very, very important and great for our students to kind of know that. And great collaboration with any of the schools here. When you call states, you call A&T, you call ECU, and we continue to develop that relationship. If you say you're coming from Wake Tech, you know, they praise it. They know exactly what you're getting from our students. They know how much work you're bringing and how less they have to do to kind of get you to fit in. And I think that's great.
Yeah. Well, you know, both of you have kind of illustrated sort of unique Wake Tech advantages, but they relate to, you know, clearly our partnerships with our four-year institutions, because to really move forward in STEM, you've got to move beyond Wake Tech into these other institutions. Now, what makes it different here at Wake Tech is, first, if you're associate in science major at Wake, or in our associate in science degree program here at Wake Tech through START, as Jackie pointed out, it's not just the academics. You also have the opportunity for the hands-on, now the internship through START, and those opportunities through associate in engineering, because that is a separate degree. It's even a more direct pathway into those colleges of engineering. So the seamlessness of transfer is so unique for engineering here in North Carolina. So I just have to point out for our listeners, if you want a STEM advantage, you can hardly think of a better community college to turn to, I think, in the country than Wake Tech. Now, another advantage, and Chris, I want to, last month we had a big day at Wake Tech where we celebrated a new site, what we intend to be our 7th campus, which is a very futuristic engineering-focused campus. It's going to be a hub for many of our engineering technologies, advanced technologies like mechatronics, robotics, automation, microelectronics, biopharma, but also for our social engineering program, because we see even more opportunity for our engineering students who are in areas of calculus and those programs, but also to be involved in some of those labs. And at that event, we had deans from our schools of engineering, or Associate Dean Jerome Lavelle from NC State, Harry Plone from ECU, because of those connections. And I'm really excited about what that will add to Wake Tech, in addition to our STEM center at Northern, our new biopharma, our biotech opportunities at RTP. But this new campus, I think, is really going to put a flag in the ground for us in terms of engineering. Can you tell us a little bit from your perspective how you see that and what those advantages may be?
Right. So this is a very unique advantage to Wake Tech. And I know we're putting a plug for Wake Tech, but it is what it is. And I say that because in most community colleges, you're not going to have what I call, what is the backup plan that you have, right? If let's say your math or your sciences are not strong enough for you to go on the path to our transfer schools, then what do you do, right? Most of the institutions that I've been in, my only option was to say, let's look at your strong sciences. So it's either going to be the math, it's either going to be the physics, it's either going to be the chemistry. And then I would say, well, let's focus on that. Knowing very well that that is not what you would like to do because you're looking for a hands-on opportunity, right? That's why I say what we have currently is very unique, because for any of our students, and not to mention that some of the students actually come in thinking they want to do applied engineering. They don't really want to do a transfer. They actually want to do an applied engineering, and they have that option, right? So instead of saying, okay, let's try and find a fit for you to just get a degree, we're actually getting you into the best fit for you.
Right.
And I think that's exactly what our new East campus is going to be. We're already doing that right now, where we're helping the students find the hands-on engineering that they want to do if it's not a transfer, which again is missing in most community colleges, as we all know. But this new opportunity that we're also going to have just even broadens that, right? It really makes this whole system much bigger than what we think. So I don't see again, I don't see why students who are really looking for that opportunity. You mentioned mechatronics is one of the growing opportunities right now for students, and to have that here in addition to what we already have, I think it's a very good situation for students to have. There's a lot of choices for our students.
Well, you bring up an excellent point. I'm glad you brought this up because I wouldn't have thought of this, but it is engineering. If your goal is to go to NC State and be an electrical engineer,
right,
but that doesn't work out the way you may have intended, engineering's broad. There's all these other opportunities, and now you'll see that breadth. It's almost like our healthcare, if you think about it. A lot of students come to Wake Tech saying, I'm going to be a nurse, but then they decide, I'm not going to do nursing, but I'm going to do something else, and then they find the breadth of healthcare. Now we'll be able to also see that in terms of the breadth of engineering. And just one other plug with that. NC State, we're working with them on creating a site there on that campus so we can have collaboration with the NC State School of Engineering, and also ECU being located there, where students, if they're interested in engineering tech, can finish a 4-year degree going from a technical engineering to the Bachelor of Science of Industrial Technology. So again, Wake Tech is unique in terms of STEM and engineering. Now, before I close here, and we could talk all day because there's so much to talk about here, and I just love the work that both of you are doing, and all the faculty team here at Wake Tech and leaders are doing. It's just remarkable. But before we go, one of the things that's very important to us at Wake Tech is diversity in STEM. Wake Tech, our goal and our mission is for everybody to have an opportunity, and sometimes in some programs, engineering being a good example, you haven't seen the kind of diversity in the student populations that you see in our populations. Both of you represent great diversity in terms of STEM leadership in our region, but you're also very involved in efforts to make sure that we're playing a role and working with our partners, like our university partners, to bring even more diversity to these great opportunities for everyone, regardless of where they live, regardless of what opportunities they had in their past. And I think that's something that's unique to our programs. And both of you have been instrumental in that. So Jackie, let me turn back to you before I ask Chris about it. But tell us a little bit about that and what you see here at Wake Tech as it relates to diversity in STEM.
Like you said, it's a huge focus of our faculty and a lot of our efforts. And so one of the things that we are launching this month in January is a new STEM podcast. So we went out and we have speakers that represent all different types of careers in STEM, and have all different kinds of looks, right? And so students can see people like themselves in those careers. And so I think a lot of times it's it's easier to do that hard path when you see someone like yourself that are doing that path. And so that's one of the kind of big visual ways that we are doing that. And then the other thing that we do is we really get to know our students and who they are and kind of some of the barriers that they may have, and we work with them. And so as we talked about, kind of getting to know your students and your instructors, and know that they care about you as a person. And then those efforts, like I said, with the podcast that we're starting this semester, the grant and START will allow that as well, because like you said, we pay our students to do that internship, and so that's unique, and we're building some of those bridges with other internships as well that love our diversity.
Yeah, that's great. Getting paid to actually do something that you're working in, as opposed to having to work somewhere else and something else and coming into that. I mean, it's terrific, and thank you for your leadership. Let me give one plug before I ask Chris a little bit, that Wake Tech is also the home for Wake Invest in Women, supported by our county, where a real goal is to, a major goal, probably the major goal of Wake Invest in Women, is to find ways to help and encourage more students, female students, to go into STEM programs, particularly African American, Latina students, and others. And so, multiple ways we focus on STEM and diversity. And so Wake Invest in Women will be a topic of a future podcast. But Chris, let me let you wrap it up and talk a little bit about the diversity from an engineering perspective, associate engineering. I will say, before I ask you this question, Louis Martin Vega, who's a great friend and colleague, the Dean of the College of Engineering, often talks about associate engineering as being so valuable at a place like Wake Tech, because it brings that greater diversity into engineering where it hasn't always been.
When I got here, I know most of the success coaches and advising area group were very excited that I was here. And it's just really with engineering and having a lot of the minorities who were interested in just wanting to kind of have a connection, or someone with, my background to come in as a male, as a Black African American. So I think that made a difference. And on the unfortunate but the good side is now you have long queues of people wanting to talk to you. And we're trying to get a support for that, but it's made a very, very big difference. People are now seeing that there is opportunity for us. And also to add, especially the males who were always hesitant and holding back on sharing or even talking to anyone about opportunities that they have. That has kind of changed a little bit. It's a small number, but I think we're doing our best to kind of expose that. And I think even with the START program that we have right now, I think that's been kind of the main focus, is to make sure that it's very diversified, to kind of have women, minorities across the board. So I think that's great. I think that's great. I'm happy my presence can make a little difference. So yeah.
Well, we could talk all day. Let me just wrap up by saying that, the presence both of Chris and Jackie at Wake Tech and the great colleagues they work with have made a huge impact on our students here at Wake Tech. And if the future is STEM, as our career focus says, the gateway to that future is at Wake Tech. There's no better opportunity, I think, to gateway into career opportunities in STEM than Wake Tech. And thank you, Jackie and Chris, for joining us today. Jackie Swanick, our Associate Dean for Science and Math, Chris O'Riordan-Aja, who's our department head for engineering, for sharing those great opportunities that are uniquely here at Wake Tech for students interested in STEM. Thank you for all you're doing for our students and our community, and thank you for being our guest today on this episode of the We Are Wake Tech podcast.
Thank you.
Flowers with a Wake Tech News Update. A successful start to the spring semester, which began January 6th. Students returned both on campus and online. With COVID cases rising, the college is continuing its focus on the two priorities of its Learn Well plan, keeping the campus community safe and healthy while allowing students to work toward their academic goals. Masks are required indoors. If you're interested in pursuing a new career and would like to get started at Wake Tech, you don't need to wait until summer or fall. You can apply today for an accelerated class that starts throughout the spring semester. Just visit springahead.waketech.edu. Wake Tech launched 2 new exciting career programs this spring. Practical Nursing, which is a diploma program that prepares students to work under the supervision of a registered nurse, and Collision Repair, which offers degree, diploma, and certificate options that prepare technicians to perform damage repairs, painting, and refinishing on cars and trucks. Small business owners and would-be entrepreneurs have a new opportunity to gain valuable knowledge and seed money for their venture. The Main Street Entrepreneurs Accelerator program offers training, coaching, and mentoring, plus up to $8,000 to help get small business ideas off the ground. It's open to students at Wake Tech, Shaw, and St. Augustine's universities, as well as entrepreneurs in the community. The program was recently announced at an event honoring Mike Conlon for his philanthropy. The founder and CEO of Affordable Communities has directed over $1 million to support small business programs at Wake Tech. And finally, Wake Tech Esports is gearing up for another competitive season. Tryouts are underway for students who love to game. Wake Tech is one of few institutions where game development is an academic degree and gaming is a competitive sport. And the Wake Tech women's basketball team is having a standout season. I don't want to jinx them, but as of the beginning of January, they were undefeated and they earned a spot in the NJCAA Division II National Poll. And that's the latest from Wake Tech.
My name is Lainey Gardner, and I'm a student here at Wake Tech for the automotive program, and I just wanted to talk to you about winterizing your vehicle today. The first thing I would check would be your wiper blades. Make sure that they're in good condition and not ripped and torn, just like these ones. All right, and so the next thing I would check would be your washer fluid. Just make sure it's topped up, and I like to use de-icer fluid just in case on those cold mornings it's not hard to get the ice off of your windshield. Also, make sure your coolant is filled up. I need to fill mine up a little bit, but make sure it's filled up with your specific colored coolant for your specific car so it doesn't freeze over the winter. The next thing I would check is your oil. Make sure your oil is in good shape and that you still have enough on the dipstick. All right, the next thing you want to check is your tires. Make sure you have enough tread on them so you're not sliding around on the road on those icy mornings. Another thing you'll want to bring along with you would be a set of jumper cables, a jacket, and a blanket, just in case any unforeseen circumstances like the I-95 buildup where people were stuck for 24 hours without food, water, or any blankets or heat. So you just always want to be prepared and bring whatever you can with you. And the last thing you should bring with you is a car charger, just so your phone is 100% charged. My name is Lainey Gardner, and for more automotive tips, just come see any of our students at the Wake Tech Automotive Program.
Thank you for listening to the We Are Wake Tech podcast. Join us next month for more insightful conversations about the programs and people of Wake Tech and how the college changes lives every day. Be sure to subscribe to your favorite podcast app to have each episode delivered right to your computer or mobile device. For more, find us at podcast.waketech.edu. To learn more about Wake Tech's exceptional educational opportunities, visit waketech.edu.